Prime Minister's office since August.
Second.
A lot more news organizations who have caught wind of our activities and are interested in discussing with us today. We have the illustrious individuals of the United Nations Press Corps here. Remember, please come inside, welcome. We have members from every international news agency who are curious about the situation on the ground. So please, I hope that you use this time productively to discuss the issues that are going on. So with that, we will temporarily suspend the rules to allow for a brief statement from the delegates. Are there maybe 2 or 3 delegates who wish to give brief statements about the situation as it stands? Let's have, let's see, the USSR and the US? The USSR, I'd like to give a brief
Pointer.
Yes.
Is there any limit of speaking time for this?
For 1 minute for now.
Representatives of the news agencies, as you have gathered here today to collect some information to bring back to the people of the Trust Territory and the rest of the world on our proceedings and on the measures that we're taking to help find peace and self-determination in Rwanda, Burundi. We would like to tell the international community that we have come to a consensus on a few main points. First, delegates, we would like to inform the international community that Belgian withdrawal will come around. However, we would only like to emphasize that this is a long-term solution, and the people of the Trust Territory should take it as such. Also, delegates, we would like to inform the people of the Trust Territory that their cries for self-determination have been heard. The self-determination in Rwanda, Burundi is coming, and the people should know this. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. And the United States.
The United States would like to inform the delegates of the press that the committee has reached consensus on certain key issues, like, of course, as mentioned by the delegate of USSR, we are ready to grant the people of Rwanda already self-determination. Yes, we have set a fixed time. We have certain timelines in place for withdrawal of the Belgian troops, but we're not going to promise it, and it's not an overnight thing, and it may take some time. In addition, we're even going to implement economic and social reforms so that the people of Rwanda, like they have been subjugated to many adverse economic policies by the Belgian, and we aim to reverse these economic and social policies so as to serve their best interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. Do we have any questions from the press corps? Yes, BBC.
I have a question for the Belgian representative. So, your history from the advent of Leopold III's want for a place in the sun has been based on inciting conflict between the Hutu and Tutsi people.
Sounds cool on the camera.
So, if there's any violence, what would you do to accept full responsibility and prevent the violence in the first place?
Well, considering there has been much violence in Rwanda throughout the entire time that we've been present in the territory, obviously what we've been doing hasn't been working very effectively. So we're working with other nations and the United Nations as a whole at this time to create a situation in which we gradually withdraw our presence from the territory so as to give them, so that we can let the Rwandan people hold the reins on their own nation. And at the same time, we're using our military in conjunction with the UN Peace Corps to ensure that peace is maintained.
Thank you, Speaker. We'll be giving you 30 seconds for response. Yes, we'll ask for the Associated Foreign.
Honorable delegates, I'd like to specifically direct this question to the delegate from the USSR. Sir, with all due respect, your statement and a lot of what we've heard over the last several days seems to smack to, I think, a lot of us of a downright hypocrisy. Well, a downright hypocrisy. You talk about self-determination, about respecting the wishes of the Burundi people, and yet here again you're talking about imposing economic and social reforms. You're talking about having a long-term peacekeeping operation in the trusteeship. So my question is this: what is your response to those who would say that the solutions you seem to have agreed on smack of a white man's burden approach, that the Western world, that the developed world, has a responsibility to help out the inferior, the native peoples, if you will? Please.
To address any concerns the representatives from the news agencies may have, the people in this committee only wish to help further the efforts made by the people of Rwanda, Burundi. The violence in the Trust territory and the millions and millions of deaths and the hundreds of thousands of deaths that have occurred as a result of this ethnic conflict is a result of their cries for self-determination not being heard. The USSR would not like to say that it is in any form of hypocrisy, if you will, but would rather just like to keep the loss of human life to the minimum.
Thank you, Speaker. Do you have any other points? Yes, this is the Le Mans.
You frequently mention that self-determination is important to you in terms of the Rwandan Burundi people. However, you have stated at least twice that self-determination is a long-term goal. Now, if self-determination is in fact a primary objective, should it not be a short-term goal rather than a long-term one?
We will allow multiple individuals to answer this question. We will first hear from the delegation of France.
That is a very good point. However, self-determination achieved in the short term is not an effective form of self-determination. France vehemently supports the idea that if you were to have self-determination right from the get-go, it would not be effective. France feels that the Trust territory of Rwanda and Burundi will be, for the short term, reliant upon international aid. However, in the long term, it will be fully self-sufficient. For the meantime, though, France does feel, and it's a general consensus of the Trusteeship Council, that they may require our hand to guide them on their path towards independence.
Thank you, Speaker. Chair recognizes George.
While self-determination is in fact a goal and certainly the future of the Trust territory, what this council needs to do is create capacity, create legitimacy, the ability for the Trust territory to become a nation and therefore be able to lead themselves and their people. And the only way to do so is by having this committee, by the multilateral action of sending humanitarian aid and establishing the necessary means to help their self-determination and independence.
Thank you, Speaker. Do you have any questions from the press corps? Yes. Let's see here.
Reuters.
Sorry about that.
There have been reports of security forces acting out of turn independently, seizing missionaries and people on humanitarian missions. What do the delegates have to say for their security forces who are not behaving as we expect them to behave?
This is regards to the Rwandan Burundi forces?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a statement from the United Kingdom?
The Trusteeship Council is aware of the problems that have been occurring with regards to missionaries in the area going missing or being taken up by security forces. The Trusteeship Council firmly believes that this is a product of miscommunication between the United Nations and the local forces and local authorities. To address this, we've decided in several ways, in several resolutions, that we would like to have dissemination of information in a much more efficient and expedient manner so that we do not have any of these misinterpretations and miscommunications in the future.
Thank you, Speaker. Press corps, are there any questions? We'll turn to the BBC.
This is a question for many of the representatives on this committee. I am wondering, how can you promote popular sovereignty in Burundi and Rwanda when many of you have denied it within your sphere of influence, such as you, Soviet Union, with the Hungarian uprising that you brutally crushed, you, the United States, with your various proxy wars, the Bay of Pigs, overthrow the Guatemalan government, and you, France, with your long, tiresome, bloody war with Algeria, when they clearly all want independence from your influence, but you just want to keep it. Why?
Delegates who have been maligned or have been directed at may have some precedents, but any delegate who wishes to speak. All right, let's hear from the three countries that were just mentioned in this question. Russia, the U.S., and France.
Okay.
Or U.S.
BBC, to address the point you have made, the situation in Rwanda and Burundi, the USSR feels that is much more dire. Though there has been a very big humanitarian crisis with 150,000 plus refugees fleeing into the Congo, as well as an impending genocide and a large-scale conflict. We believe that it is imperative that we address this situation before we consider any other smaller and much more low-intensity conflicts.
Thank you. United States.
The United States would like to inform the BBC that the United States has always been an advocate for democracy, and what the delegate of BBC terms as proxy wars has actually been the US protecting and safeguarding democracy in various nations around the world, and the US would very much hate that communism and the evils of communism and socialism spread to the nation of Rwanda, and thus being an advocate of democracy since the Second World War, the US is actually continuing in this vein to promote democracy and self-determination in the nation of Rwanda. Thank you.
Fritz.
France's newfound Fifth Republic under Charles de Gaulle fully believed in empowering the people to govern themselves, and that is why France supports the use of self-determination within Rwanda and Burundi. However, Rwanda and Burundi differs from the region of Algeria in the sense that this was a trust territory mandated by the United Nations to gain independence in the long term, whereas Algeria was not. France has a right to the land of Algeria, and that is why our presence in the region was maintained.
Thank you, Speaker. We have a few questions. Actually, sorry.
In terms of India.
Oh, in terms of India, yes.
All right, I have a question for the United States. Just to back up a bit, you mentioned that you wanted to grant self-determination, but you also mentioned some social and economic reforms. Now, one is, if you're granting self-determination, how do you plan on giving these reforms? And what do you mean by social and economic reforms? It's really easy to throw those words out there, but what is it that this committee is going to do?
United States, do you wish to respond?
Yes. As far as social and economic reform goes, it is not under the mandate of the Trusteeship Council to actually grant direct social and economic reform. However, through various initiatives taken by many countries in this committee, we have actually proposed to various bodies which can actually affect this reform in the state of Rwanda to actually carry out this reform, such as the UNESCO. There have been multilingual education programs as proposed by the delegate of France, as well. And as far as economic incentives go, after the state of Rwanda were to gain independence, many of these nations would be willing to trade with Rwanda and become willing trade partners with Rwanda so as to provide for people's development.
Let's see, we have time for a couple more questions. Yes.
Thank you. Delegates, for talk of self-determination, there seems to be very little, if any, of an attempt made to actually seek out the opinions of the Rwandan and Burundi people. My question is this, and I think it is a valuable one. What measures, if any, have been taken to actually seek the opinion of the Rwandan and Burundi people?
All right, this is a question for the broader committee.
Absolutely.
For the President, is there any other nation that wishes to speak? Venezuela, would you like to give a statement?
Yes, Mr. from where is it?
Agence France Presse.
L'Agence France Presse, merci. This committee actually has taken means to create, asking the people from Rwanda and Burundi what they have, what their opinion is, and what they would like to do with their sovereignty. Alas, we do not have the funding to carry out these questionnaires and polls, and we have not been able to carry on with it.
Also, more statements from the body on this issue. Japan.
Even though we haven't had the chance to do the questionnaire, it is true that we know for sure the situation that is happening now in Rwanda and Burundi, and we know what the people want and what their objective is. We're only seeking for the best way to gain their interest and the best way to fulfill all of their interests, even though they're different.
How do you know?
How do you know it?
How do you know that?
Because we have studied the situation, we come prepared to this committee, and that's the way that this committee functions.
What does study mean? What does study mean?
Studying and analyzing the situation, getting. What do you mean by how?
You talk about the values and the desires of the Burundi Rwandan people, yes. But there seems to have no attempt been made to actually seek those answers. You talk of a questionnaire, but that seems to have been abandoned. There's talk of of polling that seems to have been abandoned. Does it really matter what the Rwanda and Burundi want, or do you just know best?
I think it would be valuable for the entirety of the press corps to hear some actual evidence that self-determination is being pursued. As of now, we've heard it as a claim of a golden city on a hill. I have not actually seen any evidence whatsoever that is being pursued at all.
The chair recognizes Yugoslavia to respond.
And addressing that, I believe to specify exactly what the questionnaire they're saying, we had proposed to the Security Council to send such a questionnaire, particularly pertaining to the people's opinions regarding how the trust charity is spread over both Rwanda and Burundi. That was unfortunately shot down because we did not have the funding. We then addressed the idea of a plebiscite, which we decided we should not conduct at the time, as we have seen many protests and petitions to this council over the past years, which makes us sure that we do have an accurate idea of exactly what people's opinions are.
All right, do we have any other delegates to speak on this topic? We'll have Belgium.
Considering Belgium has been present in the nation for the past, 50 years, we say that we know a thing or two about the Rwandan people and what they want and need. And so we're going to be using those opinions to base our future policies on.
Excuse me, ma'am, saying that you know what the Rwandan people want to need hardly smacks of self-determination to me. That, in my opinion, seems an awful lot like imperialistic tendencies.
Right, what ground does the invading force, a hostile force if you will, for that's what you've been in this country for the last 50 years, have on the rights and the desires of the actual people?
And if it's taken 50 years for you to get out, how do you know what's the best?
Right, why not?
I would argue that you were in possibly the worst position to decide what is best for the Rwandan people.
50 years, that's a lot of time.
Fresh Bill, do you wish to respond? Or perhaps, or defer to another. Defer to the USSR.
Representative from the news agencies. Though the Belgian opinion has been taken into account and past Belgian experiences have been examined, we have also sent in, since the rejection of the questionnaire, we have been calling to accept petitions from the people of Rwanda and Burundi to help gauge an opinion of the situation on the ground. There was also an expert witness, one of the tribes in Burundi, who spoke to us and offered his valuable opinions about some of his people's options on the future of self-determination.
Thank you, Speaker. PBC.
This is a question for the USSR. If your questionnaire has been rejected, isn't that a sign of popular sovereignty that the authority of this council is void in deciding the fate of the Burundian and Rwandan people?
We would like to emphasize that this was only rejected based on the grounds of the lack of funding. The chair of the 5th Committee, the Administrative and Budgetary Committee, actually addressed the Trusteeship Council to tell us that there were insufficient funds to pursue a questionnaire.
Excuse me, I'm hearing a lot of complaining about the fact that there was not enough funding for these questionnaires. What action do you plan to take in the future? The questionnaire, fine, it's been discussed, it's a good idea, excellent.
In the future, we plan to implement a sort of transitional body to help kind of place and institute elections in the Trust territory. We believe that elections are paramount. And
so you intend to stay in the country past this withdrawal? You intend to set up a transitional government, a provisional government?
No. Do we have additional speakers who wish to speak? El Salvador.
We're only in the best interest of the people of Rwanda and Burundi, and the choices we have made and the decisions we are making are only to promote a release and possibly the ethnic and cultural strife between them, and to hopefully create a positive environment where they are able to work together on an equal level.
So you are making decisions for the country in order that it may be...
Questions here from Reuters, Xinhua, NBC, Sky News, or...
Certainly.
If
there's been funding for security forces, why isn't there funding to actually find out whether or not this is in the interest of the people? Wouldn't that take precedence?
Well, as far as funding goes, we really couldn't do much about that because we were actually visited by the Budgetary Commission saying allocation of money to peacekeeping forces was considered a productive use of the United Nations funds.
It's not productive to pull the people?
It was the opinion of the Trusteeship Council that it was, but however the Budgetary Commission has shot down this proposition, as we have mentioned on many previous occasions. As far as the future went, the proposition of transitional government does not exist anymore. We are actually granting self-determination to the people as we speak.
Jordan, you can make another comment.
Yes. The question about funding, yes, the Secretary General and the Budgeting Commission said that there was no possibility of sending this questionnaire to Rwanda. However, what are the facts we know? A Tutsi murders a Hutu murders a Tutsi. What they want, equality. How can we achieve that? Our solution is to transition their government into one that will be sustainable. We have to give them the capacity to rule themselves. And they have not had this capacity in the past.
Thank you, Speaker. Xinhua.
Yes. After you have mentioned the transitional government, and I want to ask, could you briefly explain how can you ensure the democracy of the transitional government?
Well, let's see, have the nation of the Republic of China to respond to your question.
It is the opinion of the Trusteeship Council that this transitional body will only be there to operate new independent elections. Once those elections are completed, the transitional body will be removed from the territory and popular sovereignty will not be completed.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll have, let's have a moment.
I think I speak for the entirety of the press corps when I say that we have been hearing a lot of whining and complaining about not enough funding. That's all very well and good. You didn't get enough funding. We understand that. But what we need to know and what the international community needs to know is what you intend to do in the future. This may require less funds, but I politely request that you cease talking about how you do not have enough funds in questionnaires and start talking about what you're going to do in the future that will cost less money.
And how long do you plan on staying there? Because, I mean, by the looks of it, you seem to be wanting to interfere for a long time.
All right, let's see. In this case, we'll have the delegation of France respond.
All right, Franz, first and foremost, would like to make it quite clear that the lack of funding for the questionnaires came because what this committee said we did not need to implement the questionnaires and that we should take executive action. As such, we have proposed a multitude of options that qualifies executive action for the future of Rwanda Burundi. These options include helping them to elect their own officials and take part in their own government. France feels that it is the time for the self-determination within the region of Rwanda Burundi, and France is not the only nation that feels so. In addition, socioeconomic programs to help them provide them with economic recovery and jobs, and agrarian reform for more effective agricultural policies in order to ease ethnic tensions are just some of the many things that the Trusteeship Council is working towards.
Speaker, we will have time for one more speaker from this Council of the United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom would like to say with regards to what action we are taking, as we have also so often stated, we intend to hold UN-supervised elections to ensure the fairness of the voting, and then once a proper government based on those systems of equality and liberty is set up within the territory, we intend to continue to oversee, as is the duty of this body, but we intend to allow more and more autonomy as we see fit. The reason that we at this time choose not to share a timetable is we are still debating what will be the most expedient manner, and therefore we do not wish to make any promises.
So what might you do to decide? I'm very sorry. Our delegates are very, very busy. We must get back to work immediately. But we do appreciate you coming down and talking to us today. We hope that you've gotten the information you've needed, and we may call upon you again when more developments arise. Thank you so much, Press Corps, for coming by.